Coffee is a big part of my day. Not only does it help me get through the morning, but I just really love the taste of good quality beans. Trade is a subscription service that brings great coffee from indie roasters all over the country right to your door. Tell Trade what you typically like, whether it's espresso or single origins or even decaf, even how you like to make your coffee, and they will recommend the right beans for you. Or you can just choose from over 450 different coffees. Then you select how often you'd like the coffee delivered to you. Shipping is always free, by the way. And if you need to skip a week or so, just do that. You can do it. No charge at all. Then pick back up when you're ready to get beans delivered to your door again. Go to unitedwedrink.com/trade to get started with Trade today and start getting some of the best coffees in the country delivered to your door. That's unitedwedrink.com/trade. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, co-workers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour? More like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the first episode of the United We Drink podcast in the year of 2024, the year of someone's Lord. My name is Mike Urevich, and believe me, I am Mike Urevich. I might not sound like the person that you are used to hearing as Mike Urevich. I am getting over a bit of a cold here myself, and I think that the person also with me, Kevin Abbott, can say the same.
I am looking at you. I can confirm that you are Mike Urevich and not a pod person who has taken over his vessel to enslave humanity. I can confirm that you look a lot like Mike Urevich. Well, the rest of that remains to be seen.
My skills at creating skin suits that look like low-level podcasters and beer person are paying off.
You said
did I say that with the mute button undone?
You said the term skin suit way too comfortably there. No person should have that level of comfort in saying the term skin suit and have it roll off the tongue as if you were ordering a hamburger at a drive-thru. So I'm a little worried right now.
What about Mark Evan Jackson? He says it pretty confidently in The Good Place.
And he's a demon.
Yes.
So you're proving my point.
I just blew my cover, right? I can take the skin suit off now.
Yeah, you are digging a deeper hole for yourself. Mike, you may in fact be a serial killer, and I'd be forced to turn you in if I find this out. So please keep that from me because we need to keep the show going.
Yes, I guess we have to. It's written into our contracts, the ones that we made for ourselves. And the one that I forged your signature on for you. You might not be aware of that.
Seems perfectly cromulent.
So, hope that you all had a wonderful and lovely holiday season. Got to spend some time with Kevin last week and his family. And that's probably where we all got sick. So, there's that. Hooray.
I mostly blame you, yes.
Oh, I mostly blame me. And in the process of hanging out and spending some time together, we came up with a wonderful, I think, wonderful topic for our first episode. Before we get into that, I'm not drinking beer tonight. I'm not drinking anything other than tea and water. So what about you, Kev?
I am not drinking any alcoholic beer. I have a Guinness Zero, just for posterity, and I have tons and tons of water so I can keep my throat lubricated, which I know no one wants to hear me talk about my throat or lubrication, but still to make sure that I don't cough all over this microphone and make your lives miserable.
By the way, you can find Kevin's other podcast, Throat Lubrication, on all great podcast streaming services.
It's the number one podcast for real creeps.
So when Kevin was over, he proposed that we talk about something that I don't think that we've ever had a direct episode about, but we have talked about a number of times, and usually because of drunken misconduct. And that's the Craft Brewers Conference, affectionately called CBC. It is returning again this year, as it does usually every year. But this time it is going to be in the desert of Las Vegas, Kevin?
That's what I saw. I saw that Craft Brewers Conference is going to be held in Vegas. And I did go back and look at some of our podcasts, and we had told some fun stories of CBC. In particular, I believe we talked about the Dem Wolves time, which may not be CBC. I always forget because we did
It was.
do several different things like Philly Beer Week and things of that nature. But yeah, we've talked about some great things that have happened for us at CBC, but I think in our conversations we've kind of realized that we didn't really ever learn anything at CBC. Really, it's always just been a time to go out and play and have fun with our friends, and an excuse to go on a trip and drink a lot. And my God, is there any other place in the world that you need an excuse to go out and drink a lot like Las Vegas? It just seems like a match made in hell to put a bunch of thirsty, drunken brewers in a quote unquote conference in the city that never sleeps. I know that's technically New York, but you get what I'm saying.
It really is. Last year, I wrote an article about CBC and how it just, to me, isn't worth the time anymore, and that the Brewers Association really should pivot away from a big in-person conference and go like very digital with it, and for many reasons that we will get into later. But yeah, to take, I think I'm going to be honest, like I had a blast at, I think I've been to 3 CBCs. I was in Denver with you, where I have told the story of getting insanely high off of edibles on this show before. I was in Portland with Joel, and I was in Philly with Joel, and then also met up with you. You were not working with us anymore, and you and Phil were working together at Barrel of Monks, and we hung out many times there. Great times. Like I had such a blast hanging out with cool people, meeting new people, but pretty much just drinking a ton on my company's dime, and like pretty much not having to spend a whole lot myself. And that's what I just think that this is an excuse to go out to different places, a lot of times really cool cities, and experience the drinking culture, the food culture of those places, while masquerading as attending an educational conference.
So just to add to this, so people listening know that we both have experience with this. You mentioned that I was at 2 of these with you. I also did one that you were not involved in, which was going to Nashville. So I've also been to 3 different CBCs over the years, and that's not a large number because I've been in this industry for 15 years and only went to 3 conferences. But I tend to agree with you. I mean, I think we can look at, if we're trying to give like a critique of what CBC kind of is supposed to be and what we actually think it is, and then I think we could break it down by all the things that are associated with it, right? You're talking about the award ceremonies, the expo floor.
World Beer Cup is only every other year.
Every other year, I know, but that's still part of it. I mean, and for one of the reasons why a lot of people want to go is they want to be in part of the awards when they happen every other year and walk up on stage and get their award. And I know that people have expressed that to me before. But the expo floor, the conferences themselves, the beer events that are around there, and we can talk about each one of those individually. But listen, I want to put out there, if you want to get together with your buddies and have a business trip that is basically just a playground to go and hang out and go to a bunch of cool breweries or go to cool cities like we're talking about, like Denver and like Nashville and things like, or like that, great. More power to you. But I think that the idea that was pitched to me in the very beginning is like, we have to go to CBC because this is where all the education is happening. This is where the movers and shakers are. This is where, you get noticed if it is a year of the World Beer Cup and you win one of the medals. And
this is where you can make connections to vendors and
That's a
create
big one.
relationships to buy supplies, raw materials, find better pricing on something.
Yeah. So, and discover new products, things of that nature. And I think in a large part, that's a bill of goods that is not actually true. And I think that you mentioned in our conversation that so many of those things can be done much more efficiently from behind your computer or talking to your local sales reps that are absolutely visiting your area if you're a brewery in any kind of decent sized city. Now, I will say this. We can only speak from our experience. If you are a brewer at a small brewery, and I don't know, a very, very small area, a small city, a town, nowhere near, a large metropolitan area, maybe you don't have a rep for whatever company that you can talk to on a regular basis. Maybe it is one of the few times you get a chance to actually speak with somebody. So there could some of the things we're saying may be our brewery specific, our area specific, and I want to be conscious of that. But I do think just with the nature of Zoom calls and with all the communication that I've been able to have with companies that don't have reps in my area, I think just with technology, even that kind of thing is going away.
I completely agree with you. And to go on one particular topic to start there, the thing that really is the marketing purpose of Craft Brewers Conference, and that's the educational part of it, the classes, the courses. I've been in many of those classes over those 3 conferences, and I can't think of a single one that couldn't have been just viewed through a Zoom call or just a pre-recorded conference call and been like, it would have been better if I was there. No, like what I learned at best would have been just the material, the slideshow or deck or whatever the fuck they call them now, and the person talking. And a lot of the ones that I went to were terrible too. I walked out of plenty of them because it was like, oh, this is a sales pitch for a company, not actually teaching me anything. They're trying to get me to buy their service or their product instead of teach me something about process along the way. I really don't see a point. Like if I have a question about something that I don't understand, I'm sure I could reach out to that person who did the presentation and ask them through email or something. I don't need to be there and stand in a line and wait for a mic. Like all of that just seems like it can be so easily done online. And those presentations are put online after the conference for people to watch.
I don't understand the financials completely of the Craft Brewers Conference. I know that just because I've never spoken there, but my wife goes to many conferences a year in her counseling profession, and I know that she doesn't get paid for it's really the keynote speakers and stuff are the ones that get paid. So I don't know what it would mean if you had an all virtual conference. Would the Brewers Association end up making less money, even though they have to put all that money down on an expo hall and all that money down for renting space and all the other things around it? Yeah, I don't know what that really means. But if we are talking about the education aspect of it, I think you hit on one good point. One, you have people trying to sell you their wares. And once again, maybe you find out about a product that you'd never heard of and you're exposed to it for the first time. That's a good thing. But there are assets on the Brewers Association website that tell you all about different companies that do different things. You can search companies that are doing water programs and filtration and things of that nature if you don't know anything about it, and you can find it pretty easily. Also, the resources that we get through our connections in the brewing industry constantly. We're talking about looking at a canning line. And what do? I call my friends in the industry. I don't know anybody that sells them right now, but I can find them out and I can talk to people that I know in the industry to give me a leg up on that. And the Independent Brewers Alliance, for one, if you're interested in joining them, they have tons of seminars run by companies that want you to buy their wares, but will give you information about things you might not know you need. So there's other independent organizations that can provide those kind of things. Then you have the people that are brewers, and they're giving a seminar on the one that sticks out for me was in I think it was I'm losing it. It was about fruit, doing fruit and fermentation and doing it in barrels. And it was a whole process that they went through. And I thought that it was useful, but once again, probably could have been Googleable. And I probably could have looked into it. And it wasn't completely counterintuitive. It was something that if you put enough thought into it, you could probably figure out yourself. So you have those things. And then you have the other aspect of people in the industry that are talking about things that just do not apply to you. Because of all the people that are in that seminar, if you got 150 people, 200 people in the seminar, and someone's up there talking, even though we're all in craft beer, depending on what level of craft beer they're in, they could be talking under your head, over your head, and every other direction. It could apply to maybe 10% of the people in that room. So you've got a lot of spaces where things are not going to apply to you. And when I look at the brochure and I see, I got to attend all these lectures and they're overlapping, and I end up doing what you do, Mike, and walking into one and going, this doesn't apply to me. Yeah. I can't apply any of this to anything I do. So I go to the other one, I run in, this is just a sales pitch. And then you find out, wait, out of all this stuff that looks so valuable, a small fraction of it gives any value. And can I find that anywhere else? Possibly.
Yeah, and even in a case where, you maybe pick one over the other, you realize, I made the wrong choice, and now you're walking out of one, you might have to go completely across a giant convention center to get to the other course. You might even have to cut through the expo floor, which is never fun to have to do. And then you're missing, even if you go into that one and you're like, this is where I should have been, you missed something. If you just have all of it initially just given to you as videos that you can watch them at your own pace. You can decide, no, this one's not for me. Let me just move on to the next one and watch that.
Well, I will say, and probably somebody that is a big fan of CBC is probably screaming at their podcast feed, well, you don't have to go. You could just get a ticket, and then you will get all the presentations, and you can do exactly what you're saying, Mike. So what would you say to someone who said that?
Sure, for the right price, but to pay I don't know if the Brewers Association has created a digital file only ticket. If they did, awesome. Please let me know. I'd be really interested to see what the pricing on that is. But for the conference ticket itself, and to not go is still dropping a lot of money, and it just doesn't seem to compute with me as something worth spending on, which leads me to wanting to talk about the expo floor, which is an intimidating mass of metal, humanity, and ethyl alcohol.
There's very little humanity. I disagree with you there, but please go on.
Fair enough. And I found that most of the times that I was on the floor, it was visiting vendors who I already had relationships with and just saying hello to my sales rep, or maybe even meeting the sales rep for the first time in person, picking up swag from them, and going to the refreshment booths and getting beers, because those are all over the fucking place. I know that there are people who go there searching for specific things. I am going to find a cardboard person for making my 6-pack carriers and this. And some of this, a lot of that stuff can be done through networking, like you said before, just simple Google searches, the materials that the Brewers Association already supplies on suppliers. But it is, and that some of them will be like, well, this weekend only or this week only, we have a deal for you. Your first order will be 20% off if you use the code CBC20, blah, blah, blah. Those prices, those discounts are like nothing when you factor in your flights, your lodging, all of the food and drink that you're consuming over that 5 days or so. And it makes it to where it's not a discount at all. And just makes the expo floor just this unnecessary cyber mall come to life to beat you over the head with just intimidation.
So I think it comes to mind, and once again, looking at this from somebody listening to this and saying, okay, well, is this just a point of just being negative and talking about CBC in a negative light and complaining about something in their industry? And I take it to, I think about when we worked at our former brewery together and the owner saying like we had to go there because this is where we're going to find our canning line, or this is where we're going to find our pack tech person, or this is where we're going to make deals on grain. It was of his opinion, and wrongly so, that you needed to go there. It was an important part of being a part of the craft beer community. And I have a partner at Barrel of Monks that has gone to CBC much, I believe 5 or 6 times. And he always wants to go to CBC because he believes that he can, I think he's been convinced that somehow this is going to be important for our business. Now, he's an owner of the business and he doesn't charge it to the business. He treats it as a personal vacation. But I don't want people to be misled to think that this is something where you're going to come out ahead and you're going to get all this information. It's going to be worth it necessarily. To some people, it might be. But it's like buying a house. And you go, well, if I buy this house, my mortgage is going to be lower than my rent, so I'm going to win. And you go, well, did you think about the fact that you have to replace the air conditioning unit? Did you think about insurance? Did you think about the fact you're going to have to put a new roof on it? I've recorded every dollar that I've ever spent on our house. I've spent over $70,000 in 4 years in this house. Now, eventually, it's going to be a good investment. But in the short term, it's cost me more than just paying rent on a place. You have, just like you're running your brewery, you have to look at the hidden costs. Look at that. And I think, Mike, you point out a really good thing. What deals are you really going to do? And if you are someone who's saying, I don't want to plunk that money down, oh my God, I'm missing out on something. These people are not hard to find. There's not a cardboard company that has a clandestine room at CBC, like a speakeasy, that you have to be there to get into. I promise they want to sell you things. So go on the website for the Brewers Guild and look at their partners. You can find them. Do Google searches. Talk to other people. You can find all this information. And in fact, if you are looking for cardboard around the same time as CBC is happening, don't go. Contact the person and say, listen, I couldn't make it to CBC. Can you give me that deal? They're probably going to give you the deal because they want to get a new client. So there's just, I want to make sure people aren't being sold a bill of goods. If you see value in this, great. But talking to 2 people who have walked multiple expo floors, I've never found that new unicorn company that has saved me all this money. I've done that in back of my computer. And even going to CBC and looking at your bottling line, what are you really going to learn about that bottling line with 50 other people milling around that area? I know I just dated myself. Canning line. What are you really going to learn about that canning line with 50 other people milling around that area and a guy trying to talk to multiple people? Nothing. You're going to learn more by sharing emails back and forth and getting with a local rep to come in and look at your space and talk about what you need.
Yeah. And, to go on the bill of goods line again, I think one of the things that really pissed me off recently on the whole Craft Brewers Conference was at the most recent one last year that was also in Nashville. And the president of the Brewers Association, that in case it wasn't clear, they're the ones who put this on. Bob Pease spoke at the keynote about craft's best days are ahead of it. All while the economist for the Brewers Association, Bart Watson, talking about the decline in beer sales. And they spoke about the seltzers and the RTDs and the NAs and the hop waters and all of this coming after the shares of craft beer, and how craft beer can still succeed, and it's doing all is well, while also the actual slogan for Craft Brewers Conference that year was beer and beyond, talking about all the other things that can be made other than beer by breweries. It's so asinine that they will talk about the evils of these other things that brewers make and how that's not craft, and then market it as well to people and be like, here's how you can make it. I hate to say it, but I feel like the Brewers Association is not the leadership guild that they are supposed to be for this industry. They're just out there to try to make money off of people and tell them, yeah, your brewery's doing just fine. Don't worry about it. Here's give me some money and you can come learn some more, and that'll make you better.
Listen, there's definitely a hypocrisy in there, and any organization is going to try to survive. And I don't think it's ridiculous that brewers are doing hop water and doing a RTD or trying to do these other kind of other things that they can do with their licensing. Everyone's doing what they can do to survive. Everyone's pivoting. Everyone hates that phrase, but
I don't.
Well, a lot of it. I think I remember Joel
not a
making
lot of
fun
people,
of
I
me for
guess.
using that. You were not a lot of people. You were, in fact, one person, as far as I know. Okay,
unless it's the skin suit.
Yeah, I thought you'd say something about that. So I don't blame the Brewers Guild. I don't blame the Brewers for doing it. I do think that standing up and talking about how craft's best days are ahead of it, sometimes it's best to not talk about that. Hey, these are the challenges of what we're doing, and this is how we're going to need to get through it. And if you say that you have to get to a point where 25% of your production is something other than beer, and that's what the Brewers Guild is telling you is a good idea, okay, that's a position to take if you've got people in good leadership. I think it's a little bit ridiculous. I think about, this is a story that Penn Jillette tells about Donald Trump on The Celebrity Apprentice, and before they did an interview, the person went to Trump and all of them and said, listen, whatever you do, don't mention the ratings. The ratings are terrible. Our ratings are down from last year. Just make sure you don't mention the ratings. And then the lights went on, and the first thing Donald Trump said, ratings are as good as they've ever been. They're the best ratings ever. We're beating everybody. We're number one. And I feel like that's kind of the thing. Like, don't talk about the fact that we're losing. Don't talk about the fact that breweries are closing. Don't talk about the fact that people are just getting their asses handed to them. And in the next 5 to 10 years, we're probably going to see 50 to 20% of all the breweries in the country gone. And then they gotta go, the best days are ahead of us. This isn't a cult, guys. Okay, we don't need cult leaders trying to get people to drink the Kool-Aid. We need practical leadership.
Absolutely. I mean, honesty, transparency. It just almost seems to be a hand-in-hand thing with the Brewers Association to say that these are the things that are hurting brewing, while also being like, hey, Boston Beer, you guys good over there with your Twisted Tea and your Truly that makes up more than 60% of your production? You guys are still members, right? It is silly, and it's been a long time critique of the Brewers Association that they're only out to look after their top however many breweries instead of the small guys. But I mean, there was also a lot of talk last year of being in Nashville, a state, Tennessee, a state that had recently passed a lot of anti-LGBTQ legislature, and people asking the Brewers Association, what are you going to do to like try to ensure a safe space for members of that community who are brewers and want to come to the conference? And basically it was like, well, we say that there's nothing, you shouldn't do stuff like this. And there's a lot of reports of people being harassed, even on like in the conference. So I mean, that doesn't shed a good light on the conference as well.
I mean, that's a whole can of bees to open up. I mean, we could have a whole 3-part series about the dichotomy of the brewing industry, because you've got the good old boy network of regressive ideology and politics, and then you've got the younger hipster kind of groups of people that are inclusive and absolutely want beer to be a safe space for everybody. I think it's pretty obvious where you and I fall in that. So it's really interesting because beer is such a space. And I mean, look at the Bud Light situation, right? There's a lot of people that drink beer that hate anything that isn't, what their personal ideology is. And I don't know where the Brewers Guild sits in that. I don't even know what their responsibility is there. I do not have any problem. Maybe I would even support someone saying, no, we're not going to bring our conference to your state. You've heard about this multiple times with different organizations not coming to Florida or not going to different states that pass regressive legislation. And I think it's good when an organization does that. But there's also good arguments to the fact that not everybody in that state agrees with that. Mm-hmm. Just because the legislature did that, it doesn't mean that the people necessarily do that or believe in that. And it's difficult to parse those things out.
Absolutely. And then I think to kind of put the cherry on top of the shit sundae that that we're creating for the idea of CBC. Let's just talk about the drinking, because it's like you go into the expo floor at 9 a.m. and beer stations are already open, pouring beers for people. You have those open all day. You have after the conferences are over and the expo floor closes, you have these refreshment center. I can't remember what the actual term for these sponsored parties, pretty much by like a couple vendors. Like, this is the BSG room, and we got beers from this. You can talk to your reps here and all of that, and then, if you're not beered out by then, you have breweries doing tap spotlights at bars all over the towns. You got breweries in town that are having events every night with barrel-aged releases and special stuff and blah, 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 blah. Or you're just walking around, Ubering around, hitting up as many places as you can, getting as many beers and then maybe some cocktails in you as you can, maybe some THC products if that's your thing and it's legal there. That's what I did. And it is just, and then you go to fucking sleep, you pass out. Let's be honest, you pass the fuck out, you sleep terribly, and then you do it again for the next 3-4 days.
I've certainly done that. I've when I've gone to CBC, I've had the mindset that I want to get stuff done. I want to learn. I don't think I ever really have learned anything. Coming up with this, it's like, what's the one thing that I took away from CBC? I can't think of a single thing I learned. I can't think of a. Now, this might be because I didn't engage properly. I'll take that as a possibility there. But I definitely looked at this as a vacation more than a conference that's going to increase my brewing knowledge and connections in the industry. So I've done exactly what you've said. I've been in groups of people that otherwise were relatively rational that turned into absolute monsters because they're just take beer after beer to the face. And the one thing that just baffles me about all this, we are talking about brewers. We're talking about brewery owners and operators. Who does not have access to all the free beer they want to drink at every point of their lives? I have parties here in my neighborhood, and I bring 3 cases of beer to it because I can. And we drink our faces off in certain times. Other times we do it a little more responsibly. More drinking faces off in our neighborhood when we're walking back and forth and we're being, safe. But this idea that now we get to drink like maniacs, but this time in a new city is a little, isn't that a little weird? I mean, I don't know. And also going to these beer releases and having all these, like, aren't most of us that are actually in the beer industry, don't most of us know that all these releases are kind of bullshit and that so many of them are just taste like every other beer that are out there, and you probably have better stuff in your neighborhood. Maybe you even make better beer. It's not like we're buying into the hype. We're not the hype boys that don't know anything about the industry, logging into Untapped to give something a 5 that tastes like unfermented wort. We're supposed to know about this stuff. So why do we really care about those releases and those special tap spotlights with badly made smoothie sours? If you want badly made smoothie sours, you can get them anywhere. I think that there's a brewery that in the start of this episode opened up across the street in my neighborhood that makes bad smoothie sours. So it's an interesting thing that it turns into this get drunk fest when every day can be that if you really want it to be.
First of all, make sure that your house is protected because explosions are going to happen from those cans. But secondly, I think some of that mentality is from some brewers, brewery owners, brewery personnel who are like, I want to see what the hype's all about on these guys. Is this any good? And they want to just go and have it and see for themselves if it is, and be like, oh, I could see, or yeah, I make better than that. And yeah, they even though they would probably make fun of the people who stand in line to get that stuff, they just essentially go and do it because they're like, I need to see what X brewery is all about because they always have these people talking about they're trading their beers online and for children. But it's I think that there is some of that, and that's ego. That's completely ego.
We started this whole thing talking about the fact that this was in Vegas this year, which is the perfect playground for the playground that is CBC, or the worst playground for the playground that is CBC.
Ladder.
Yeah. And what do you really get out of it? And we've obviously been pretty negative, even though it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun if you get to go to a new city, and it's a lot of fun when you get to hang out with people you don't get to see very often. And I do want to come back to the thing is that if you enjoy this and you've got the money to spend, man, if you got the money to spend and go on vacation, whatever you can. Go to every cool beer city and drink all the beer you want to go to. I like going when I've gone to CBC, or we've gone to Boston for Extreme Beer Fest, or we've done other events throughout the country. I love going to breweries. I usually like stopping into standard, incredible breweries that have been around for a while that I know make great beer and oftentimes probably don't have the longest lines. That's my preference. If you want to go to the, more douchey breweries, and you do you. I think that's a really good thing. But I just don't want somebody in this industry who doesn't know what they're actually getting into, or somebody that's debating on whether or not they're going to put down several $1,000s for them and their team to go out there. I don't want them to waste that money because it's money that can be spent probably much, much better at a time and place in the industry where everyone's struggling.
Exactly. And that too makes it seem even more egregious that we are still suffering from inflation. Us in Florida, especially, apparently like the most hit by inflation still in the country. And the Brewers Association, who is supposed to be helping their members, just rolls out more money pit things for them to do. Be like, here, give us this money, we'll make you better. Maybe, I don't know, numbers don't look good, but do it anyway. You want a medal? Oh, you got to pay us for that too. But only in alternating years when the sun is at the highest peak and the moon's over at Aquarius. I don't know, but it's something I feel like they could streamline and make more accessible, more approachable by having, because I'm fairly certain 99% none of the speakers are paid to do these things. Those people can record those in the safety and the comfort of their own homes, send over their decks to the Brewers Association, and the Brewers Association could just publish all of these for a nominal fee that could be shared around the entire brewery of the membership member, and just have that great directory of resources of vendors that they can access. And I think call it a day. Do your World Beer Cup if you want to, every so often. But I almost feel like they just do this for the World Beer Cup to create a stage for it, because they're not going to do a second GABF every 2 years. So it almost seems like just a ploy for that. But I feel like they can create a better, a more cost-effective means for brewers to get real education without booze hounding themselves into psoriasis.
I do want to mention, and I did mention this a little bit earlier about my wife and the conferences that she goes to. And my wife does a lot of speaking engagements at these counseling conferences. I feel like she does at least 2 a year, if not more. And when we were talking about this, she was very quick to mention it's the same thing for her. It's the same thing for many of their colleagues. This is a mental health counseling conference with learned doctors, and it's just a bunch of people going, hanging out there with their friends and getting drunk in another city. The difference is those people don't necessarily, unless you're my wife, have access to all the beer they want whenever they want it. Most of these people are going out there and finding their bars, restaurants, hanging out, and doing debaucherous things. So it's not unique to the beer industry. It's conferences in general. And I guarantee it's the same thing with medical conferences. I've actually spoken to a few doctors and a friend of mine that works in the medical device field, and he's mentioned things about conferences before. So it's not unique to the brewing industry. It's just that the brewing industry is unique in how it's promoted, and especially the party aspect of it. And just our access to it at all times is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. I guess I'm done rolling them in the dirt. Do you have anything else you want to say
about the conference? Not particularly. I think that we have made our feelings quite well known. I just want to mention that I will be going out to CBC this year. I will be speaking. I have a lecture about why CBC is not a good investment.
I'm very surprised that they pick that from the pool of possibilities. Is it going to be a point counterpoint thing? Like, are they matching you up with someone who's going to be like, no, this is a good idea. Case in point, here.
No, they're actually going to have somebody on there to debate me, but I'm just going to start, and they're just going to kick the shit out of me and leave me for dead, and that's the plan. I don't know why we're setting up the Brewers Guild as some like nefarious organization. I do believe that
the you Brewers haven't Guild, read the thing about how they are the Illuminati.
I have not. I did read that they had a significant role in killing Kennedy, but that was on a weird website. So I'm not sure if that's not true, but I'm not sure that that's true either.
Oh yeah, because Ted Cruz's dad is a former board member of the Brewers Association.
There you go. There's the connection. I don't want to just say, hey, if you're on the Brewers Guild and you're just trying to take money from craft brewers. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think that there's well-intentioned things here, and I think getting money for the guild which is supposed to use that money to help out our industry, is a good thing. I don't know enough about what they're doing to say yay or nay whether or not they're doing a good job or not, because it doesn't really affect me very much in my day to day and the kind of brewery I have. So I don't want to just put them as like a nefarious organization just trying to money grub. I did not like what you were saying about this rah-rah aspect of the craft beer industry and where we are now. I think that's a little bit silly and possibly dangerous. But I don't know. I just wanted to make sure I put that out there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate them as a whole for doing. I'm sure they're probably worried about the stability of their organization too, with all of this. Like, as if if a whole bunch of brewery members close, they're losing dues on that, and they can't do as much as they used to do. So much due being thrown out there. But I just think that it is time to reimagine the Craft Brewers Conference into something less grand and less like toxic, and that can be a place where people can actually learn, can actually connect with vendors and suppliers on their own, at their own pace and time and leisure, and that they don't have to go travel to crazy locations that is potentially money strapping for them to do so. I just think overall it should be rethought out at this point. We're in 2024, and I think that we can do better to help people and save them some money, which is also helping people.
I also I feel like it's worth mentioning that the whole idea that the brewing industry has not seen its brightest days, the brightest days are in the future. Maybe they're not. Maybe the brewing industry, the craft brewing industry 10 years from now will be 25% smaller or 50% smaller. In general, we have to stop looking at success as the only success is getting bigger. The only success is getting big enough to be bought by a macro brand. We've seen that with Funky. We've seen that with so many other big purchases that probably not going to see as many of them going forward because they haven't exactly turned out really well for the macro brands in the first place, or the big buyers there. So I think we have to redefine success. And I think a good organization, and if the Brewers Guild is a good organization, it might be worth it to say, well, maybe being smaller is good. Maybe being smaller is inevitable anyway. So we need to find a way to be healthy and make money and help brewers make money being smaller and not having those aspirations, and finding ways to cut costs and finding ways to be if a brewery opens and says, I need to make 7,000 barrels a year to make a profit because of where I am and where the equipment that I want to buy and blah, blah, blah. And they've never hit that number. And they're sitting there going, we still got to get to 7,000. At some point, where do you say, well, maybe I need to sell off some of this equipment. Maybe I have to sublease part of my warehouse that I have. And maybe I got to find a way to be healthy at 4,000 barrels. That's a relevant business plan and something that a smart business owner needs to consider. So I think also the Brewers Guild would also want to do that. And once again, I don't know that that's not happening. I'm really going off of what you were saying, Mike, about that speech last year. But it's worth mentioning, and it's worth mentioning for anyone in the brewing industry right now who's listening to this, or anyone in any business, if they're struggling or there's not seeing growth. You cannot look at your business unless, and even if you are AT&T or one of these giant corporations, you cannot judge success 100% on growing 10 to 15% a year to infinity, because at some point it's just not a reasonable goal. And it's also, to many points, not possible, especially for 99.9% of companies. So if that's in your game plan and you go, well, I just need to grow 25% a year for the next 5 years and I'm going to be good, you probably don't have a business.
It's like we talked about this a little bit on, I can't remember which episode, but it was a fairly recent one where you mentioned like I would be, instead of getting more accounts, I would be great at maintaining the percentage of our highest ones and helping them grow a little bit at a time. And that to me would be a key to success, is maintaining those relationships and that that business. Like, yeah, you're probably going to look at a point like, I need to get to this, but I feel like if you can set that bar lower and then maintain off of that, that would be great. But I know that this industry is tough for that because it's such a high overhead to enter the segment. But yeah, I'm with you on that.
And this stuff definitely turned into like a state of the industry kind of thing that really wasn't, I guess, tangentially related to CBC. But these are the kind of things that would be a good seminar. And maybe they are doing these. I don't look at the seminars every year unless I was going to it, and I haven't been all that interested for obvious reasons in going. So maybe they're doing those kind of things, but it would seem unlikely with the rah-rah nature of any guild, right? Any advocacy for anything, they always want to be like, well, we just need to grow and we just need to be better, and we're going to be. And I hope that these other kind of ideas would be on the table and help to teach people that are not business people. In so many, I'm not a business person. I don't have a business degree. I learned this and I'm slowly getting better at it every day. And anyone that's going to give me information like that would be really, really valuable.
Yeah. All right. I think it's about time we can move on to Last Calls, segment of the show where we give each other an unspecific amount of time to talk about whatever it is that we want, beverage related, not beverage related. The only rules are that it is uninterrupted, unopposed, and unobjected. Kevin, you want to give us your last call? Is it me first?
You need to go first because I haven't even thought of one yet. So I need to think of one while you're talking.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great because I was trying to think of one too while doing that little intro.
We only had nearly a full month to prepare for this, Mike.
Yeah, I really just turned my brain off to the best that I could. Well, let me just say that I hope that once again that you had a lovely holiday season. Mine was filled with highs, lows, and everywhere in between. It was a first Christmas without my brother, which made it tough at some points, especially for my folks. So there was that, and but there was some joyous parts too. It was the first Christmas where my boys really kind of were starting to understand what was going on. They got really into watching tons of Mickey Christmas related shows and movies. And when we woke them up on Christmas morning and we're like, hey guys, come on out to the tree and see all of these presents underneath it, they were just like, what? These are for us? They were little hellhounds by the end of the day, when they got tons of presents from other family members and they didn't nap very well. But that was all that. And then 10 days of them being home with us was a lot. But it was fun. It was enjoyable. It was fulfilling. I look forward to doing it again next year with them and seeing even more possible magic in their eyes. But yeah, I've made little resolutions for myself, if you will, for 2024. I'm cutting out another day of drinking from my weeks, so I'm down to 3 days of not drinking, and I'm hoping by the end of the year to have that down to 4, and just in general be a little more conscious of the alcohol intake and health in my life. But yeah, I hope nothing but the best to all of you folks listening out there this year. So thanks.
Thank you for going first, Mike, and that was beautiful, and I'm really happy to hear that. So you knocked one out of the park there. I also, I had a good time over the little break. My dad and my stepmom were both in town, staying with us, and it was wonderful. It was so great to have them here and to spend the holidays with them, which I haven't done since I was like a teenager. So that was really great. One of the things that we did during the holiday, out of many things, was spending time together, was we watched a documentary on Barry Sanders. And if you're from the Detroit area, or if you're just a football fan from the late 80s, early mid 90s, you kind of had to love Barry Sanders. He was at that time the greatest running back of all time, in my opinion. I still think he still is the greatest running back of all time. Then again, I'm getting old and I'm going to be biased forever because there's still people that think that whatever, George Mikan is the greatest basketball player of all time. So I understand how that works, and time does roll on. But Barry Sanders quit at what was still the peak of his career. He had just come off of a 1,500-yard year the year before he gained 2,000 yards, and he walked away because the passion for the game was gone. And this was a really good documentary for a Detroit sports fan who does not get to see very many documentaries about your teams. It was really, really cool, and there was no classier guy than Barry Sanders. And this documentary, if you're interested in it, just shows it. He's just the most humble, decent person that you can ever see in the world of the crazy world of sports. I had the pleasure of meeting him on several occasions. I used to wait tables at a restaurant he would frequent, and he worked at my gym. And I mean, we weren't friends. I'm not trying to claim that, but he was always very polite to me. He recognized me when he would see me, and couldn't have been a nicer guy. And I love seeing the highlighting his career, and I loved watching it with my dad. I saw this thing available a month or so ago, and I was like, oh, my dad's going to be in town. We were there when he gained the 2,000 yards against the Jets on the final game of the season. I'm going to butcher the year. It's probably 97 or 96, something like that. And we were there. We were at the game. My dad took me down there to see it, and that's a very, very special moment of my life. So we also got a chance to watch this documentary together, and it was pretty cool. So I highly recommend it. If you're a sports fan, like I said, check it out. Barry Sanders couldn't happen to a nicer guy, and it was awesome to see him highlighted.
I'm going to have to look that one up. You want to plug anything, Kevin?
Do I want to plug anything? Barrel of Monks, we've got a new bock coming out in January. And then we've got a couple can releases coming out in February. A new IPA, which is a New Zealand IPA that Ralph has been working on, which I'm sure is going to knock out of the park because he always does. So if you are in and around South Florida and you want to see the cool new things we have coming out for Barrel of Monks in 2024, I highly recommend you check us out.
A Hellas too, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Hellas?
Yeah, that's what Ralph was telling me.
Yeah, the lager that we're doing. Yeah, that's actually not going to be canned, I don't believe.
Okay.
I think that's just going to be a draft item. But once again, come to the tap room and you'll be able to check that out. I think that is coming out later in the year, but I don't have my calendar in front of me.
Okay. I thought he had already brewed it.
Once it could be coming out in February or March. It's possible for March.
Really putting Kevin on the spot here.
I mean, listen, dude, I'm in a brain fog. I have, been sick the last couple of days. And by the way, I don't ever know what's going on in my brewery. That's the reason why we're so successful. If I knew what was going on, I'd probably fuck the whole thing up.
If you want to follow me, you can find me at Mike Loves Beer on Instagram. Also, I'm taking a little bit of a break from the site formerly known as Twitter. But I am on Blue Sky and Threads at the same name as well. And if you dig any of my photography stuff, check out my site where I sell some prints. Mike Urevich, MikeJureyCZ.darkroom.com. And I have prints available there at, I believe, a very nice, modest price. Other than that, if you want to support the show, check out our website, UnitedWeDrink.com. Go to the Brands We Love page, and we have a bunch of stuff there where if you click on those links and buy something through them, a little kickback comes our way and helps us out. We also have shirts, buttons, stickers, totes, and other fun stuff on our web store, UnitedWeDrink.com/store. Other than that, we'll be back in a couple weeks with another new episode. Happy New Year, everyone, and cheers.
Cheers.
FIR, severe turbulence, forecast within 3012 north 040 west 2349 north 040 west 2829 north 02620 west 3611 north 02523 west 2012 north 040 west